Hello, Max here. Hope all is well. I hope everyone out there had a good Sabbath for those observing the Sabbath today. And I want to go over what oppression is from a Jewish standpoint, why it's so serious. Now, biblically, oppression existed in many forms. The biggest example was the Israelites being slaves in the land of Egypt. We were oppressed spiritually, mentally, physically. We couldn't do basic things in life. We couldn't have the most basic needs and wants in our relationships. And another example is simply the fact that there was people just treated terribly through ruthless, wicked kings in Israel and of course other places in the Torah. Now, how does this exist today in many forms? I'll give you all some examples. First of all, people oppress the poor in the most horrible ways. People will physically abuse people, sexually abuse people. People will hate one another and torture people. These are the worst things. But as far as simple, everyday things, let's say you take a poor individual, they'll be made it so that it's nearly impossible to have a normal relationship with a lover. They'll make it so that it's harder to have basic amenities in the best way possible where they live. Many times people are discriminated against as far as it being harder to find basic jobs. And many times these individuals are treated worse at their jobs by far, much worse than other individuals. Only thing saving people sometimes is maybe their looks or something like that. Even that doesn't get you everywhere. And another example is, of course, food and clothing. Sometimes people in poor situations, they could be put in some kind of mental health facility or whatever. It's made so that these individuals have a harder time even getting basic access to things like clothing, food, shelter. And yeah, maybe they might have shelter, but basic amenities, they might be promised they're going to have maintenance come and repair something and they never show up. Really, the viewpoint among people, for instance, who are in mental health facilities, or even people who just don't have a lot of money, for whatever reason, they're treated worse. So I want to say this, for all you people out there oppressing individuals, it's very serious, and you're going to be punished by God imminently. I'm not certain what exactly is going to happen, but I know you all are going to be punished. And I want to speak out against this because oppression is very serious in Judaism, and it's serious because it exists in everyday life, but exists so much, and it has such great effects spiritually on the person affected, and even the people around those people affected. So the biggest example I like to use is that when people are put in certain kinds of facilities, whether it be nursing homes, whatever, a lot of times these individuals are perfectly hardworking people, but they're treated worse, and they're treated to the point where they're unable to really successfully get a job, not because they haven't tried, but because they're treated worse when they attempt to get one. They are discriminated against. They're treated worse when they get one, and in order to get one, they have to do extra things. Sometimes they aren't allowed to work. Sometimes they have restrictions on how they can work or what kind of shifts they can hold. This is despicable, and I'm not saying there should never be any restrictions if someone has a genuine type of disability that calls for it. But when people are disabled and oppressed to the point where they're prevented from having a livelihood, prevented from seeing their family a good amount, prevented from seeing people who are close to them as far as relationships and lovers and people who are intimate with one another. That's exactly what the Nazis did. And, people might hate me for saying this. I'm not saying, obviously, the Nazis are wicked fools and they're infinitely worse than what goes on today. But I'm just saying the Nazis did the same thing. What they did was divide families. They didn't care about if two people loved each other. They didn't care if people wanted to see their family. What they wanted to do was just divide the Jewish people and everyone in general to the point where people didn't even have anyone to call upon. Many people today do not have people to call upon because they're pressed to that degree. So that's why I'm saying this is very serious. And it's to the point where the wicked are who are oppressing individuals, they're going to be destroyed by God. And by destroyed, I mean they're going to be punished to the point where you're going to see it happening. Now, I want to add this. I apologize if I offended anyone about my comment regarding, the Holocaust. But the point is, the Nazis had an ideology and agenda to divide the Jewish people. In the same way, many people, and people in general, but especially the Jewish people today want to take the most righteous, holy individuals who are hardworking, loving individuals and divide them so that they have no family to call upon. This is despicable, and that's why I say the reason I've used that comparison was because people today who are oppressed, they're prevented from seeing their lovers, they're prevented from seeing their families. They're gossiped and slandered against, like the Nazi propaganda. Not in ways nearly as bad, but I'm just saying the whole point was to make it so that families would be divided against each other. Now, it's interesting to note in Judaism, Elijah the prophet is supposed to bring the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers, meaning he's supposed to bring families together because families in this generation are so divided. We need that reparation of everything. So I'll end with this. We need to end this kind of oppression to people in these healthcare facilities, nursing homes, people who don't have a lot of money, people who are homeless. Instead, what we need to do is give to the poor, help people, love one another, do good for others, and we need to lend a hand to those people. And we certainly need to make sure they're able to be with their lovers, to see their families, and we need to give them the most love as possible. Not treat them any differently because they're at a lower status. But we need to treat them the same because we're all created in the image of God and we're all worthy of basic human needs and wants. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.